Good evening, everybody. It is season 5, episode 27 of the UK Cowboys podcast. I'm joined tonight by Rich. How are things, sir?
All good, mate. All good. I'm just turning you down because you're quite loud and lively for Tuesday night.
That's never like me.
I know, right?
How are things going?
All good, mate. All good. All good. Be better if we'd won on the weekend, but c'est la vie.
That's true. Very, very true. I suppose, look, Rich, the initial thoughts. I mean, a lot of roosters came home to roost on Sunday night. A lot of things you have said repeatedly this season happened in that game and killed the chance of us building any momentum. So, give us the initial thoughts.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, these are the sorts of things I don't like because it just makes me sound a bit arrogant. But yeah, there's a couple of things. I mean, the main one being obviously the offensive line and not even the run game, because running the ball was perfectly fine, but specifically the line play. But in fairness, on both sides, frankly, they just got bullied. But this is one of the reasons why I believe that Dallas specifically needs to have a big, strong offensive line, because you otherwise come unstuck against teams like this. Run defense has always been a problem. It has been patched. They were actually stopping them, but when you have teams like this, it's a game on the road, you have problems with penalties. Like you said, a lot of roosters come home to roost. A lot of things start to stack up. You are in a situation where the best sort of remedy for all of that is having your offense be able to score and keep up, even just keep up on the time of possession to stop them scoring, but ideally putting points on the board, and getting ahead to enable your defense to be able to play the way that they want to play, which isn't the way that is going away from their weaknesses. It's playing to their strengths, not their weaknesses. Not how everyone else wants you to play. You can't do that without a lead. And if the passing game's not going, you got to be able to run the ball decently, be able to control at the line of scrimmage, which will help the passing game. But they didn't seem to be able to do it. But the flip side of that is they did have some success running the ball, but because they weren't able to do it early enough, or they didn't do it early enough, and they weren't able to put points on the board, they got pigeonholed into having to throw the ball and try to throw the ball and banging heads on the wall. The same result, and that's how it turned into the travesty that was the bullying in Buffalo.
Yeah. Like one of the big things coming out of that game, and Joe has made the point here, and I know it's a big thing of yours, obviously, is, to me, the lack of tackling was bad, especially from our defense. And I mean, you're a big rugby guy, Rich, and it's your one thing. You hate seeing guys being soft in the tackle.
Yeah,
and that's what was on display.
Yeah, and there's multiple people. If you listen to any kind of Cowboys podcast generally, definitely the ones on DallasCowboys.com, but numerous other ones as well as ours. You will be hard pressed to find a show, especially leading up to a game like this or a team like this, where someone doesn't say you have to tackle them properly. You have to tackle people with intent. You have to tackle them with purpose. You have to tackle through them and tackle them all the way through to the ground, because otherwise they're going to shake you off, whether that's about a specific player or multiple people. It'll happen. And that's exactly what happened. And this is one of those instances which has been a bit uncharacteristic of late, admittedly. But yeah, if you're not going to do it, you're just going to add another layer of woe to this catalog of stuff that's stacking up. It's not a great recipe.
Yeah. And kind of some of the points I kind of jotted down here in regards to the game itself. Obviously, look, it's another poor road performance. It's another defeat against a team above 500. And I kind of said this to you guys on Sunday night. Our injury starting to affect us, given that we obviously had Jonathan Hankins and Malik Cook missing, and obviously we're still missing Leighton Van Der Esch and Trayvon Diggs as well, and then during the game we had Zach Martin went out with an injury and sat out most of the game. Is that a concern?
It is. I mean, at the end of the day, the Cowboys have made solid attempts to try and patch up the run defense, and they're having snags, as a lot of teams are this year with this time of year, rather, with injuries. It happens every year. There's only so much you can do. A lot of teams, and one thing one person said before to me was the difference between Dallas and a lot of other teams is the importance they put on depth, especially at specific positions. And I completely agree. Dallas, I don't think personally does or has done a great deal of that. For whatever reason, however they choose to address it, they feel they're happy with what they have. It never seems to work out. But the injuries are definitely a concern. But the one thing I will say is your defense actually showed up. They were stopping them. Yeah. They scored, okay, and they stopped them again. They scored and they stopped them again. The problem was penalties.
Yes.
Timely penalties, bad penalties.
Yeah.
Cost them. Nearly every, I said it on the second drive, the scoring drive that the Bills had. I said, look, it's another penalty, they're going to score again. And then the next time there was a penalty when they could have stopped them. But they've scored again. And now we're 21 deep. Because if you'd have stopped them there, you hadn't had those penalties, that's a 3-3 game.
Yeah.
And if you stop any one of those, you then start going down the myriad arguments of, how does it affect things at that time of the game? Everything plays different after that because that didn't happen, which is a valid point. But the simple fact of the matter is they don't score those points because they're off the field necessarily. They could have come back on. Cowboys could have had another 3 and out. They could have come back on and scored them. That's fine. It's a bit shoulda, woulda, coulda. And what if? But it's not excusable. You had them stopped. You let them off the hook 3 times, and they made you pay for it. That's how teams win in the National Football League. Someone makes a mistake when you got 2 good teams playing in any sport generally. You've got 2 good teams playing. It's the ones that make the least mistakes that generally win. And the Cowboys made some, not a ton, but the ones they did make were doozies, and they were bad timing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like if you look at the second drive in particular, it kind of does back up your point in terms of that penalty. And I'm not trying to get on Sam Williams' back here on this. He made a genuine attempt to try to block down the ball. The fact he went airborne, and I mean, he couldn't really change his trajectory. It felt like a soft penalty, but it was still a penalty.
It was not a soft penalty, in my opinion. It deserved it all day long. The fact of the matter is, if you play with fire enough, at some point you're going to get burnt.
Yeah. With
how aggressive this team is in lots of facets, across all 3 sides of the ball, you're going to have these instances. They're going to happen. The bad thing is, you had that happen at the same time as you had 2 other really bad things happen, and it all caved in on itself. I mean, I was listening earlier on to Brian Broaddus earlier today on the break, and he went on a bit of not a spiel, but he was going and saying a lot of good things, and he got in a rhythm, and then they went to break, and he came back, and he made the joke of, what did Dallas need to do to address the penalties was the question, and he said, just score 40 points. Because if you score 40 points, then you can have 18 penalties, and it doesn't really make a difference. The funny part is it's actually partially true. And it's probably part of the reason why Dallas has won the games it has, because, yes, they've made mistakes. The penalties have been coming down, in fairness. If you look at the trajectory, they have been coming down. They've come down from really high down to 5 in this game.
Yeah.
But, if you score 40 points, you're probably going to overcome a lot of bad stuff. And you're probably going to still be in a position to do a decent amount and do enough to win a game. The problem is when you're not doing enough, one penalty can ruin a game. You had 5, 3 really bad ones.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of something that popped up, and it kind of ties in with this in terms of, obviously you're missing Hankins, who's your anchor on the D line, Leighton Van Der Esch, who's your middle linebacker, Malik Hooker, who's your center fielder. That's kind of the spine of your defense. And Joe was kind of making the point here. He says, we've got safeties trying to play linebacker, and they were getting killed in the run game. I mean, Dave Hellman was making this point. He says, look, it's not just the fact that you're missing Hankins. It can't just be that. And it was a thing, like they have some very light guys trying to come in and play middle linebacker or in 2 linebacker sets.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's the very simple maths of it is, the physics of it is, you've got a light, quick safety coming in, trying to make a play on a bigger person. Across the board, you've got a power running team in Buffalo with a very, very strong, hard to bring down quarterback who runs the ball very well.
Yeah,
they don't want to pass the ball because they know if they are going to lose this themselves, that's how they're going to do it. So they're going to run the ball, and they know your run defense is sus anyway. So do it till it stops working effectively. And they did it, but they didn't even do it with Josh Allen because they didn't have to. Because when your lightest lineman is quite a bit heavier than your counterpart, your heaviest counterpart, you're not going to have a great time. You're already winning just the pure physics of this.
Yeah.
You haven't got to do much. You haven't got to commit more people. You haven't got to commit a fullback to things. You haven't got to commit tight ends to come in and help you block, because you can do it just on what you've got, because you've got people that are literally strong enough to bully you into what they want to do. It doesn't necessarily matter about, to a degree, what's happening around the edge, because if you've got people controlling it up front and the lane's open and the Red Sea's already parted and your running back's gone, the horse is bolted. It doesn't matter what happens back there now. He's gone.
Yeah.
It's done. And that's exactly what happened again and again and again. Anyone who has supported the Cowboys long enough, when I say long enough, I mean since 2016, knows exactly and saw how this game was playing out from first, second quarter.
Yeah. Because
this is exactly how that team beat everyone that year. They ran through the league pretty much until they got to Green Bay. And that was just unlucky. Yeah. I'm convinced it's because they tried to be someone that they necessarily weren't. But it was you could see it coming. They ran through them. They were just bigger, they exerted their will, and they bullied you. They bullied you all night long, and you couldn't do a thing about it.
Yeah. And I mean, does that concern you heading for the playoffs? Like, obviously the one piece of good news out of the weekend is we are going to the playoffs, but there has to be a little bit of a concern because there's no tape on us from the San Francisco game, from this game, that you can run on us. And like, to be fair, against San Francisco, they didn't run that heavily on us, but we've seen it before in the playoffs. We saw it with the LA Rams a few years ago, where they ran for nearly 300 yards. I'm just looking here. The Bills went for 266 yards on Sunday.
Yep.
It takes away from our best assets if you're running the ball.
That's the thing. You haven't got to do that much running. You haven't got to run it on pretty much every single down, or the vast majority you haven't got to run it for all but 2 plays or whatever stupid statistic it was.
Yeah.
To necessarily beat Dallas, you just got to do it enough.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, people are scared of you getting a lead and pulling away, which enables your pass rush to play into what it is, and they're scared of your pass rush. If you stop the offense, you'll stop the pass rush because the pass rush can't do what it wants to do.
Yeah.
That's the best way you can counter it. It's exactly the same, as I said, back in 2016 when we were playing high-powered offenses. The best way to counter them is to keep them on the bench because they can't score points if they're on the bench. You chew up clock and rely on doing that and being able to put points on the board, which was the highest red zone percentage the Cowboys have had. This year's been the highest since that season, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Because they were something ridiculous, like 90-something% in the red zone. If the Cowboys got in the red zone, they were scoring, and they were scoring 6.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to score 8, they could score 8. When you got that running game, yes, you can go. You got the logic of a team can come out and score quick, pass the ball, score quick, potentially.
Yeah.
But if you do enough to stop them, you've got a half-decent defense to do enough to stop them. You can do enough, and that's exactly what Buffalo just did to you. Yeah,
for sure. Like if we kind of flip it over and look at the offense, like Dak only threw for 134 yards. Like that's not great when you combine it with 89 yards rushing.
But then, what can you do? When it's all well and good having CeeDee Lamb open out there in the flat. You've got Ferguson open over there. You've got Cook open.
Yeah.
It's all well and good. You've got 2 guys in your face right here, or one here, or one screaming around the edge, or one hanging off you and another one coming in to finish you off. You can't throw. There was one of them later on, I think it was in the 3rd quarter. I can't remember who it was, and I haven't gone back and watched the tape. But the camera was literally behind Dak, and you could see CeeDee Lamb was open there.
Yeah.
Lineman's rushing at you in front of CeeDee. There's no way Dak is letting that ball go. He can't. He's got safeties coming in, playing the zone, because they can see what he's trying to do. They're reading him. He's got no chance. He's not going to let that ball go, nor should he.
Yeah.
The safest and best thing to do is to take the sack, which is what he did. It's all well and good having all these options, but if you can't protect your quarterback enough to give him the time to throw the ball, it's pointless. Which is, again, why I've been saying about you need to have a bigger line, in my opinion, that can exert its will. They've done good in pass protection up to this point, but when everyone's bringing pressure like mad because they know they forced you into position, which is what Dallas has been trying to do this season, force you in a position where you have to throw the ball. They know you're not going to run the ball. You're going to pass it. You become one-dimensional. You become easier to combat.
Yeah.
They're going to bring it all night long, which is exactly what they did. They put you in third and second and long and third and long situations. You helped them do that in certain occasions, and they bring it, and they got sacks. Well, they force you 3 and out, forced incomplete.
Yeah.
Simple recipe. It works.
And like if we break it down further, Rich, I mean, as you say, it's the line is small and getting smaller. Is it a whole line issue for you? Is it the middle of the line, or is it just a combination of, say, the line is getting that little bit older, wearing itself down, and like we can't compare the quality of a line we had in 2016. It was so good. But like, if you want to have this game of running the ball continuously, you need to beef up that line a lot more.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's perfectly fine to have that target. It's perfectly acceptable to have that target to say, that's where we want to get to. That line was ridiculously good. There were play clocks not play calls, but timings afterwards during the game where they timed how long Dak Prescott had, and he had like 7-9 seconds to throw a ball. Like someone is going to work themselves open. And now, when you've got the likes of Brandon Cooks, when you've got the likes of CeeDee Lamb, when you've got Jake Ferguson who's doing his things, when you've got small, nimble receivers like Tolbert, like I forget his name now, number 9,
Turpin.
which is really going to annoy me. Say again?
Turpin.
That's really annoyed me. Thank you. Like Turpin, someone's going to get open.
Yeah.
And if they're not, Pollard probably will be. Because they're not going to cover all these guys perfectly. But if you can't protect your guy for long enough, I mean, you're not protecting the guy for 3 seconds, let alone 7.
Yeah.
But it's perfectly fine to have that be your goal. You know, no one's perfect, but the pursuit of perfection is perfectly acceptable. They need to get better, in my opinion, generally across the board. I think they're good at left guard.
Yeah.
They're good at the guard positions. Terrence Steele seems like, he's coming back to being generally as he was. I have questions at center, personally. I think you can improve there. Yeah. And you still have a question mark, as much as I'm not going to say it, but we still need a future plan for left tackle.
Yeah, agreed.
But at the minute, I just don't want to jinx it. It's you need to improve. The simple fact of the matter is the line has been slowly attritioning, and the biggest exhibition you've had of that was Sunday night.
Yeah.
Because you weren't able to do what you wanted to do. You couldn't pass. You could run it, but that's mainly because they were allowing you to run it because they weren't scared of that. They're not scared of you running the ball. No one at this point is scared of Dallas running the ball. What they're scared of doing is MVP candidate Dak Prescott and his wide receivers and his favorite tight end nowadays going and carving you up and pulling out to a lead and maintaining that lead. And if they continue to do that, that lead's going to grow and grow and grow and grow, and you're then becoming one-dimensional, and you are being forced to play a certain way that you don't want to do. They know that's what you want to do. They're not doing that back to you. You need to have a line that can play against your opponent. And your opponent was very big and very physical, and your line is just not very big and very physical. They've been generally good all season, but they've not played a team like Buffalo, which is why they've kind of fallen apart.
Yeah. And I mean, if we flip it the other way, I mean, Buffalo as an offensive line have always been quite good, but quite blue collar in that, you know, I don't think there's very many first round picks on their line, but they have guys who come in and do the job and do it unspectacularly. But for the most part, they're a pretty elite line.
They're good. They do. For me, they're an epitome of a line that does the basics pretty well. And ultimately, they're big guys. Like, don't get me wrong, linemen are big, but these guys are pretty big.
Yeah.
They excel and make their money on being big, making running lanes. That's what they do. That's why Buffalo didn't need to do anything other than run the ball at you.
Yeah.
Because they can do that. They shouldn't need to. If I was there calling plays, I wouldn't do anything other than different to what they did. Just hand it off. Just hand it off. It's going to be a very boring night for you, Josh, but just hand it off.
Yeah.
Because we'll win.
Yeah.
Do you want to be bored and win, or do you want to be excited and lose? You want to win. Okay, Sam. Go be bored.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Buffalo, this was a huge game for them because if they dropped to 7-7, they were in danger of missing the playoffs. And they've got the win now. I think they're closer to
now.
Yeah.
They look dangerous now.
Yeah.
And they are. Because a lot of the teams around them that they will face, the concerns like Dallas will be the passing game. And as we said, the best recipe to counter that is to keep them off the field. And the best way to do that is a consistent committed running game. If they committed to running the ball on you, and you've seen how effective that is, and like I said, it shouldn't be alien to anyone who was around for the 2016 season, because it's what we did.
Yeah.
But this is part of the reason why, when I said earlier on in the year, doing this offense the way they are now, the way Mike McCarthy is now, great, fine, it's working dividends. Yeah, you still need a power running game. You still need this to be able to complement your offense. Is it really... Dial it back to sort of basics, almost idiot logic, right? Yeah. The last sort of best success, or the best anyone felt about Dallas heading into the playoffs, was probably 2016.
Yeah.
And they had the 1 seed. What was the recipe for your offense? What was the one thing you could hang your hat on and say, they'll do that?
Yeah.
What was it? Like, genuine question. What was it?
Yeah.
Running game. They had a good line and a strong running game.
Yeah.
And they could pass the ball as well if they needed to. They had a nice selection of wide receivers. Go back 25, 27 years, depressingly.
Yeah.
Go back to that age. What did you have?
Strong running game.
You had a strong running game. You had a good offensive line, and you had a nice selection of wide receivers, and your quarterback wasn't too shabby.
Yeah.
Sounds quite similar, apart from 1/2 things that play off each other.
Yeah.
That's why I keep saying it, because it seems very basic to me.
Yeah.
You need to be able to combat whatever team you play, wherever you play. You're going to have communication problems when you go on the road.
Yes.
Because it's loud. You have to be able to win on the road, because, like numerous people have said, I think it was Patrick that I heard say it last, Patrick Nosey Walker.
Yeah.
Super Bowl's not at home at AT&T, it's on the road.
Yeah.
You need to be able to win on the road, people.
Yeah.
You need to be able to run the ball effectively, because you haven't got to worry about necessarily having the verbal communication to do all this stuff, and worry about the non-verbal stuff, and Dak stamping his foot like mad trying to get things set up and get the ball before he gets a penalty, delay a game. If you can part the Red Sea and hand the ball off, not as much. It makes things easier for you. It's less rushed. It's less panic. It's more balanced. It gives you a solid option. If you're able to effectively run the ball, you will generally, in my opinion, have more success on the road.
Yeah.
But they can't just do that this season.
Yeah. Just going to bring in Mr. Stewart. Paul, how are things?
Here he is.
Sorry, gentlemen. I completely dozed off.
I was going to say you look like you're a sleepy boy.
Oh, yeah. No, I've literally just woke up. I was just like, I was like, oh, crap, what just happened there? And I just checked my time. I was like, oh, crap, it's like nearly 9:30. I was like, right, I'll be there as soon as possible.
Well, just want to check the inside of your eyelids for 2 seconds. And look what happens.
All right.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. It happens to the best of us.
It does. It does. And I mean, at least you joined the right podcast this time, Paul.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, there was a bit of a hiccup with the Worlds team this week, which was completely my fault. Basically, I resent RJ the wrong podcast, which was the San Francisco game, and that got re-uploaded. So our show of the Buffalo game, it's been fixed now, but crap happens.
Yeah. So we're nearly finished talking about the offensive side of the game, Paul. I mean, give us your own thoughts on things and what went wrong.
Offensively, I think just with the stuff that was going on with the defense and somewhat early on with some of the decisions by the referees as well, it really put a mental block on the offense. I thought, I think there was moments where we were looking pretty good. There was good catches from Lamb. There was good catches from Ferguson and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it just seemed like there was a big mental block throughout the whole game. There was just, it just seemed like a bit of like, and maybe some of the game management as well, the play calling as well, I suppose. But
yeah,
it just seemed there was a mental block, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're dead right. And like myself and Rich have kind of been discussing, the fact, look, the O-line didn't seem to stand up very well. It's just a fact that Buffalo seem to be bigger in the trenches than us.
Oh yeah, like we knew that going into that game there with Von Miller back as well and Oliver being in there and stuff like that, we knew we were going to be up against it. And obviously losing St. Martin halfway through the game was massive. So it kind of set the tempo within the trenches, and when Martin went down, there was a step down in terms of physicality.
Yeah.
I mean, and all that being said, I still thought there was moments Bass did have good. TJ Bass had some good moments, but he kind of showed that he still has a lot to work on, and with how their defense were basically on top of our offense, they knew when to blitz and when not to blitz, etc. So, in terms of the positioning, where they were lined up in the offensive line, as well as the linebackers as well, that I thought like all credit is all due to Buffalo. They were defensively, they were on fire. They had our hand by a lot, and whatever, like, this is more tail end to the game and this is like, I'm not trying to throw Dak an excuse or anything like that. Like, and this is leading up to the interception I'm talking about. This was Dak being desperate to try and move the ball forward and try and make it into a game. So obviously, with that being in mind, like, there was going to be more mistakes, but Buffalo were more than prepared for that. So they were, like, mentally, physically, Buffalo defensively were just far more superior, and they really like caused it to our offense. But our defense at the side of the ball, well, that's a different story.
And I mean, like, we kind of spoke earlier about the fact we were missing, as I say, Hankins, Hooker, LV, and Diggs. I mean, Buffalo were missing players as well on their defense. Like, they were missing AJ Epinesa, they were missing Micah Hyde as well. Like, so I'm not trying to make excuses when I say we were short players, because every team at this stage of the year will be short a couple of players.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of felt like it seemed like when things weren't going our way, the body language throughout the whole team, it just spread like a virus. It was just like, I mean, we saw it with, like, we'll talk about defense in a moment, but primarily you're seeing it with Micah Parsons. He just did not look like himself at all. Like, and his body language was basically feeding off all the other players, and heads were down. There was no urgency, there was no fire and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's just it's frustrating because we're on the road, and it was a game I was really looking forward to. It was a game that could have really, like, if we were to put in a better game, like, I would have been happy if we lost. I would have been happy with a closer loss type of thing, like, because we knew going into Buffalo territory, it was going to be hard, right? And and I'm going to say this now: Josh Allen was not the best player in the park. It was their running back, right?
Oh yeah.
How he got the game ball, I have no idea. That's just a pure media coup to try and get him back on the route, pretty much. But anyway, I just kind of feel like once the things were just happening, when the heads were down, that was that game over. But if we were to lose, say, like by one score and or a field goal, like, at least we know that there was a bit more. It was more competitive that way. We could compete with these guys in any given Sunday, like your San Francisco's, like your Buffalo's, like your Kansas City's, all those type of guys that you could potentially play if we were in the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship. So I think that is that's the issue as Cowboys fans are seeing right now. It's like, yeah, great, we are in the playoffs, if things are going in the trajectory right now, and thank you for Seattle for defeating the Schmeros last night. That was just fantastic. That definitely brought my smell up in Monday today. If we were to clinch the NFC East, then great. We've got home field advantage, but we need to make sure that we are putting these teams like San Francisco, like whoever else is in the NFC that could potentially cause that type of threat. Then we need to ensure that we are more competitive that way. And this was the thing I said with Meg. It's like we need to make sure that we're executing, we're focused, and obviously, like, there was just no mistakes, and we did not do one of those at all in that game. So it's more mental, I would say, than the fact that we know our team is good, we know that, but there was definitely a mental block that was going on during that game, like not just from the players but also from the coaching side in that game. And it's really hard to pinpoint who to really put the blame on, so to speak, but there just seems to be a weird situation wherever we're up against a highly viable team that, like, despite Buffalo being 8-6 or whatever it is their record is, they still are in contention to be a top team and still make it into the playoffs at a good run. Same with Kansas City. They've not had a good season, but yet they're still caused that threat. They've got that ability to do that. So we just need to make sure that we knock out that crap and actually focus on us, and rather than focus other than them. Like, that makes sense.
Like, they didn't show a great deal of mental resiliency.
Thank you, Rich. That's the one.
They didn't look across the board, like you said. Everything, offense, defense, special teams was fine, but the coaching side of things as well. And the two things. One thing annoyed me. One thing I question with the coaching side of things. Generally, of late, things seem to have been trending quite well. So we said earlier on, while you were having a snooze, that generally the penalties have been trending down in terms of the number. We've gone from really bad down to 5 the last game. It was only 5. They were really costly, due to the nature of the game and when they happened and all the rest of it. But there was only 5 in comparison to games previous. That is an improvement. To give credit where credit is due, but there is still an issue of discipline there for me, of self-discipline.
I totally agree with you.
And I don't chuck that around loosely, but that is 100%. And that has annoyed me the past sort of 24, 48 hours, hearing lots of people talking. And they keep saying, there probably is an element of discipline. It's not going to change. You can't change it. Yes, you absolutely can. It can be changed. Self-discipline is something that every person can change, because the key word is the first one, self. If you discipline yourself, you've changed it. You haven't got to rely on anyone else. It's like different kinds of pressure. You can have someone else exert pressure on you, or you can exert pressure on yourself, or you can have perceived pressure. There's lots of different things to this. But self-discipline, controlling you, doing what you do and doing it, this is why professional athletes train so much. You train to maintain technique and discipline when you're absolutely tanked. Because if you don't, it's going to fall through.
Yeah, and in fairness, Rich, there's 2 points in that game which I feel really, really hard for the Cowboys, where the penalties really did cost us, but it really led up to the demise of that whole game. One of which was the fumble. It was like, obviously Buffalo, like, smartly took off the next play, get it done before the coaches actually even have a chance to review it. That should have been our ball, and the players knew that deep down. if I was like Donovan Wilson or whoever it was who tried to recover the ball, mentally it's like, that should be our ball. That should be our freaking ball. Like you're going to be all pent up frustration. The other one was the late hit on third down, where just before the late hit, we should have been held down for a holding call. It was so blatant, right? And I was like, where's the flag? I was screaming at the television, where's the flag? Where's the flag? And next thing, Donovan Wilson, I can't remember if it was Donovan Wilson or if it was Bland or whoever it was, but it just basically took out, it was either Diggs or it was Khalil Shakir. And it basically, it turned down from, it could have been a loss into a big, massive game plus 10 yards because the late hit. And after that, you can just see every player in that defense went at.
Yeah, I'm glad you said about the fumble, because that was the other part that I mentioned earlier that I was annoyed at, specifically in terms of the coaching staff, because you can tell if something happens there, or whether you think something happened or not. If a team gets up and they all of a sudden are uncharacteristically rushing to line up to snap a ball quickly, you know something has likely happened.
Yep.
Having just watched the play, how can you not very quickly put 2 and 2 together and go, do you know what? Time out. Let's review this.
To be fair though, Rich, I could, like Chris, it was closer to the Bills sideline. McCarthy wouldn't have a really good view of it, and I'm not trying to throw any excuses out there. Like if you're on the further away sideline and it did look like an incomplete pass, and the players are just basically they might be chancing it, I wouldn't want to risk a timeout, lose a timeout based on a challenge if that's the case.
Yeah.
Like, especially there was no TV review to look at it quickly and all that type of stuff. So I can understand why that happened, because even Nick Eatman made a tweet about that. I think it was Nick Eatman. Someone from DallasCowboys.com did mention it, what really did happen. And I was like, because originally I was like, why did we not challenge that? Why did we not challenge that? Like, just like pure instinct of fans. Like, because generally from watching the video from the television, I generally thought it was an incomplete pass.
Yeah, I did.
Right. And when the review happened, I was like, get the challenge out. But again, the coaches must have thought the same thing. They must have thought it was just an incomplete pass.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. But when you've got a team that hasn't rushed to line up to that point, they don't generally do that. They don't generally go no huddle. All of a sudden, someone's come out of a play, has used that one word that everyone knows.
It's meant to work. It's meant to work.
Line up now, and let's snap the ball now, quick.
Yeah.
But how do you not just go, burn a timeout, let's have a look. If we're absolutely sure, I will throw the flag. If there's any element of doubt, I'm not wasting 2.
Yeah. That's a fair point. At the same time, like, I feel like I'm playing devil's advocate with you here, Rich, but I'm not though. But like,
no, I get it. Yeah.
Like, because from from the mental warfare aspect of the coaches, McDermott's like, we'll just quickly line up just in case, just to really see if they might waste a timeout.
Yeah.
Like, he must have told the players, like, yeah, it's an incomplete pass, but line up quickly anyway, so they might actually throw the flag in. Like, it's all mind games, end of the day, and. But I can't really dispute what McCarthy didn't do. If that's like, it's really hard. It would have been a really hard decision.
See, the thing for me, Paul, is right. We have analysts up in the box. It's their job to analyze stuff like that and get into McCarthy's ear and say potential challenge, and they're going quick. Maybe throw the flag. They've got their job is to make those split-second decisions, and they don't seem to do it because this isn't the first time it's happened this season.
That's true, but I think they were in the same position as us because we didn't get to see the review till after that second play happened. So they were in the same situation. So if anyone's to blame, it's the broadcasting, because they should have been on giving that out as quickly as possible, but it didn't happen. But But again,
It's one of those things.
it's the name of I hate to say it, but it is the name of the game. Like
It is.
and with our analysts and that, like some of them are up in the box, they're not going to see what happened from their point of view, especially the more ministerial version of it. They're just saying, yeah, it looks like an incomplete pass, though not challenge. So
it was like we said earlier at the top of the show, this was a very bad amalgamation of errors across the board. If that happened in another game, probably not as big of a deal, because you go, do you know what? Like Paul said, and rightly so, as much as I've been on it, it's a hard decision to make very quickly on very little information. You're just going on maybe a bit of gut feeling.
Yeah.
That's about it. It is a bit of idiot logic, and you are prone to wasting a timeout for the sake of it.
And just to throw this in there as well, this is why one of the reasons a lot of teams are wanting Buffalo to get a new stadium. That's another reason why, because how their system is all set up, it's their TV screen is literally, I think, one of the smallest ones available in the stadium across the NFL.
Yeah.
So for even coaches to even look up close, like from their sideline, to really see this TV screen at the end in their end zone compared to other stadiums and stuff like that, like, and again, I feel like I'm back in McCarthy here. Like again, I do feel like like maybe get a little bit set of balls, just go for it. Why the hell not? Like if he was the challenger, like here's the thing: if we were to, before even looking at the replay, if we were to throw in a challenge fire, we'd be like, what are you doing, Mike? What the hell?
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean? Like, because I'd be like, well, I didn't see it. To me, I thought that was an incomplete pass. Why the hell are we challenging that? So
no, this is the thing. Is it's not a case of having an issue with him not throwing the flag at that point. I got no issue with him not throwing the flag at that point. The question I ask is, why wasn't a timeout called? That's, for me, is the question. Why didn't you call a timeout? Because Dak is good enough, if it comes to it, to work with two, and you get the ball back straight after the half anyway. So really, if you're in that kind of situation, I'm calling it. I mean, it's easy for me to say because I've never been in the position. I'm an armchair coach, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But I would like to think in that situation, I would have got timeout. Have a look now, quick, and let me know.
When did that point of the game happen? Was that within the 2 minutes? Was that a 2-minute drill?
No, it wasn't within the 2 minutes. But my point is, if you get to that point, then at the end of the second quarter,
yeah, I agree with you.
And you're on that kind of offense, you've still got 2 timeouts. Dak is good enough with 2 timeouts.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one, Rich. Even just try and throw Buffalo off to not put our defense on the pedestal. Like take away the fumble together. If you've seen them quickly line up, it's like, what? No, hold on a minute. You're not. You're not controlling the pace here. I'm gonna slow you guys down there.
Yep.
Then we would have had the opportunity to see the replay. Then Mike's like, hold on a minute. I'm gonna use my other timeout, throw it in, and throw my red flag, and we still would have had our second timeout because it would have came back to us. So.
So, guys, there's a kind of a question I've had bubbling in my head for the last 5-10 minutes, and Joe has kind of popped it in here as well. He says, I'm not going to panic yet. And look, I'm not trying to get into the Miami game yet. Obviously, that's for Thursday's show. But if we do get beat against Miami, I'm going to push the panic button. And then my thing is, I'm kind of struggling to find in the McCarthy era a big win away from home. I don't know if you guys can think of one, but I mean,
I can.
Go on ahead, Rich.
When he led an injured Aaron Rodgers into Dallas against the 1 seed and came away with a win.
No, I'm saying in the McCarthy era for Dallas.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you just meant Mike McCarthy as a whole. Sorry, I misread that.
No, in his time in Dallas, it's something I made the point last week is Jason Garrett, Tom Brady. No, we beat them. Yes, sorry, you're right. Sorry, apologies.
That would be the last big away game you won was in the playoffs, and you sent Tom Brady into retirement.
That's right. Yeah,
that's fair.
That for me would be the one.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah,
it's the only time he lost to the Cowboys.
Yeah. Like the reason I asked, and I kind of asked Graham this last week on the show, is more like Garrett seemed to go and win games away from home more regularly against those top teams, like against San Francisco, against that team up north, against some of the better teams. Like I think, and it just seems to be he could do it. Now, I mean, look, I'm not going to trade Jason Garrett for Mike McCarthy because Mike McCarthy's gotten us to the playoffs 3 straight years. But it's a concern for me in that, they don't seem to be as able to win a tough road game.
it goes back to mental block. Really,
Yeah,
it just seems to be I'm sure McCarthy is more than capable. It's whether the players are mentally fit for it. That's the question I'm asking. Because at the end of the day, like, they know what they're supposed to be doing. They know, because there was moments of the game where defense looked really good. Where we're doing 3 and outs. Same, and the Cowboys were pulling off a good enough drive. Like it's just a matter, like, was these decisions from the referees to the discipline issues really took on a mental effect on the rest of the players. Like, a mistake on the defense has now affected our offense. It's like, oh, for goodness sake, why did they do that? Now we need to do an extra 25 yards when we are now on the field or something like that, like anything. Like, it just seemed like there was a bad vibe whenever there was a mistake within the team, like, rather than being, nah, we've got this, it's all good, don't worry about it, keep your head down. It just seemed like whether there was like a lot underwhelming pressure to really get this one.
Oh yeah, they definitely wanted it. And they were doing enough to do it. They, like I said, the defense stopped them 3 times.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I can't get behind anything Colin Cowherd says personally.
Personally, I'm normally the same, Rich. I'm normally the same, but I think composure is actually quite a good word to really summarize that. We just
composure is a good word, but I would personally just choose to. I know how this looks and how it sounds, but I would just choose a different word and be happy that I'm not agreeing with Colin Cowherd personally. But that is me.
We all have
I'm happy. I'm happy to own that. I would say to his face.
Yeah.
But they stopped them 3 times.
Yeah.
They let them off the hook 3 times. Nothing against you, Kent. It's perfectly fine. It's a good word. But they stopped them. They did enough. The defense being injured, still having questions about the running game, going up against a big running team, against a big running quarterback, did enough at the start of that to keep you in it. Did enough to keep it 3-3 when your offense is not functioning. That would have taken 18 out of your 21 points off the board.
Yeah.
I want to throw this in here, right? Is Dak still an MVP candidate after that game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. The reason I'm saying that, right, I'm just looking at the stats here, right? If I was to throw it, right, so, like, guess who stats is who, right? 7 out of 15, 93 yards and a touchdown with an 89.3 rating. And there's 21 out of 34. Bear in mind it's 134 yards and obviously 1 interception. Who was the one that's actually trying to win the game and not try to win the game, but basically was more active and really try to try and do something? For me, like the one that was 7 for 15 attempts at passing was Josh Allen.
Yeah. But why would you do any more than that? You don't need to. Like I said earlier, you got the choice. You can turn around and say, Josh, we've got 2 choices here, mate. You can either be really, really bored and win the game, or you can have a really exciting night and quite possibly lose. Which is important to you?
I mean, what did Josh Allen actually really do in that game? He didn't really do anything to really stand out from the crowd.
There you go.
Here's the ball.
Yeah,
there you go.
The problem was sorry, I know we're kind of mixing into defense now, but
Don't worry.
But obviously the biggest threat was obviously James Cook, who was 179 yards for 25 carries.
Yeah.
Right. Averaging 7 yards a carry, right? And when I was looking at the next gen stats, the majority of all his runs were outside run. Never ever in the inside, hardly ever. Yeah. And I thought, wow, okay. So we can't blame Mazzy Smith. We can't blame Oso Odighizuwa in that game because they weren't running towards him. To me, they did. To me, the interiors actually did their job. So for anyone who was to jump in, oh yeah, this should have been the game for Mazzy Smith. It's like, well, when you look at how the routes have done for the run game, it's like Mazzy Smith wouldn't be able to contribute in terms of adding to the stat count. If anything, he actually forced the running backs to actually move out wide. So if anything, it's our defensive ends. It's Micah Parsons, the DeMarcus Lawrence. How many times did we see DeMarcus Lawrence actually going running to play catch up on the sideline?
Yeah,
in that game, we saw DeMarcus Lawrence more on the sideline making tackles than ever before. So the question I asked this is like, what happened to our linebackers? And we know our linebackers are being a bit of a question right now.
This is the thing. They played you your weakness, and they also used your strength against you. They used your aggressiveness against you. To then exacerbate and really cut you in at the second level at the linebacker call, where you're really hurting because you have a safety dropping down, playing quick and making tackles, but he's a smaller guy.
Yeah.
He's not built to do that. He's not built to play that position. He's not Leighton Vander Esch. He's not a proper linebacker. He's not say what you want. He's not Shaq.
Just to add on top of my point, DeMarcus Lawrence was second in tackles. 7 out of 7 were solo tackles.
Yeah.
And that just shows that during that run game, he was basically running from being his 3-point stance and actually ended up on the sideline, essentially, to try and stop James Cook. So that's a concern.
The annoying thing for me was they committed to running the ball. Like you said it yourself, Josh Allen, 7 for 15. They committed to running the ball because that's all they needed to do. They didn't even have Josh Allen run it. They just ran it conventionally because they knew that's all they had to do. Tony Pollard had how many touches? 10?
Tony Pollard had
13.
11 rushing attempts.
Oh, yeah.
I've got 11 on
11 rushing attempts. And
11 rushing attempts, 13 touches of the ball. Okay. So he's had 11 rushing attempts. He's had about half of what he should have.
Yeah.
Why, when the pass isn't working, okay, we're behind. We need to get the passing game going. Why are we not doing what is working and running the ball to try and draw them in to create some space to then pass the ball? Because at the end of the day, you've got to do something to get your offense going. You've got to do something to kickstart that engine, because if you don't, that's what happens. You get blown out like you've blown other teams out. And once you're in that hole, as Dallas should know very well, because they put teams in that hole, once you're in that hole, it's very, very, very hard to dig yourself out of. Dallas has done it once by a miracle against the Falcons, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When they had the onside kick at the end, and the Vegas odds at the end of the game went from 99 against to 99% for. That was crazy. Dallas has won some games they probably shouldn't have, but they lost one they probably should have won on Sunday. They know how hard it is to get out of that hole. They need to do something to get the offense going, because like I said earlier, that is how you protect or stop people negating your defense. You let your defense play and let them ball hawk and let them rush the passer, because you're making your opponent one-dimensional. But you sometimes have to get the running game going to open up the pass game. And in a game like that, if something's working, just go with it, because at least you're doing something.
So to somewhat answer what you're saying here, and I think this is the problem that we do have, is especially when we're rushing the ball and when it's great, then we will stick by it. But if there's one play during the run, and again, looking at next gen as well, we didn't utilize Tony Pollard to outside run hardly at all.
Nope.
It's mostly been inside.
Yep.
And what was the problem with our offensive line when Zach Martin went down? We had pressure on the inside. So whenever Pollard got tackled for a loss or Dak got sacked, we seem to kind of like, okay, we're now steps back, we're going automatically straight to pass, straight away. Like, and it became, and it was predictable. Like that's the problem. So McCarthy has that tendency where, okay, right, we're now in the back foot. Now we need to kind of really play catch up here. Like we need to now it's forcing us to throw the ball now, and this is where all credit is due to Buffalo. They knew exactly what we were doing.
Oh yeah, they, like I said before, they weren't afraid of your running game in no way, shape, or form. They were afraid of you passing the ball and putting them in a hole, and they're afraid of your pass rush. And they don't have to be afraid of your pass rush if they're stopping you passing the ball.
I really do need to question also, why did we not run outside run at all in that whole game?
They haven't done all season, practically. They haven't done it. They've had Tony Pollard come back. This is the thing that's really annoyed me, is they let Zeke go, which I can understand to a degree. They haven't replaced him with that caliber. They just said, you know what? We're going to ride and die with what we got. Okay, cool. That's fine. Do what you did, or at least put him in a position to have success, i.e. run him to the outside. Because if you're not going to have someone breaking down someone play after play after play after play, to then in the latter parts of the game to have Tony Pollard break free and break through in the middle and get to the second level, at any point, whether it's on the outside or on the inside, you have to then play to his strengths, which is on the outside. They've literally had an opposing running back, like you just said, Paul, play them how Tony Pollard should be playing. And he had over 20 touches. And look at the yardage he put up. Tony Pollard's yardage average was actually pretty decent. He only had 11 runs.
Yep. 4.7
Why not
yards.
do something to get yourself going? Because if he's doing decently and he's running the ball, they say, oh, yeah, you're not afraid of a running game? Okay. Let's show them that they're freaking wrong, because at the minute, it's working. Let's just keep going.
I totally agree. Like, why not give the fake handoff to Pollard to really pretend to go outside and let Dak run the ball to the other side, to the weak side of the ball, something like that. Like, I just kind of feel like we were very limited in terms of our rushing options, in terms of play calling for that, and we cannot do that against Buffalo, against Miami, where it comes to next week.
No, well, they used a lot less motion this time as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. I noticed that we did not motion
crazily low compared to every other game.
Buffalo
clearly showed they were keyed in on what you were doing and your tendencies and everything you were going to do. They were keyed in. Give them credit. So why not do something that they're not expecting? Run the ball back at them.
Yeah. It's a weird one. It's a really weird one.
I'm going to be honest, right, on Tony Pollard, right? And this is a concern. I have the numbers here in front of me. He's 207 rushing attempts, 848 yards this year, 5 touchdowns. His longest run is 31 yards this year. Last year, Tony Pollard, as Rich alluded to, when he was going outside the tackle and we were pulling to get him outside the tackle, was getting 40, 50 yards. He was housing attempts. I've seen maybe 2 explosive plays from him this season. That's it.
Although Brian, we did have very, very long gains from Pollard, 40 plus yards, but they did get called back for holding. We did get that.
And that leads back to a discipline issue. But
exactly.
I mean, you know, it was my concern all along was you were letting Zeke walk out of the building, knowing Tony Pollard was coming back off a horrific injury, and you franchise tagged him. And I don't think we've seen the value of the franchise tag this year.
No.
It was I said it at the time, it was a calculated risk, and it was ultimately you were backed into a corner. If you didn't do it, he was hitting the market, someone was going to take him, because someone's going to take him and they're going to utilize him properly. In his defense, and I agree with what you're saying in terms of, because if you look at it generally across the board, okay, Dallas was bad with penalties last year, they're bad with penalties this year. You take that as a given. His production is down. But you haven't given him the opportunity to do that. He's in a different situation, and they haven't utilized him properly enough. It's very, 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 very nice that Dak Prescott has found this cadence. He's doing all this. They have a really good passing attack. That's great. But you haven't got this reliable running game. And part of the reason I'm concerned about at the minute heading into the offseason is that actually you may well have a half decent running game, but you're not using it. You are not playing to your strengths. You are not giving him the ball enough. You are just quite happy to lay it all on Dak Prescott's very wide shoulders. But that's not always going to work. Like we saw earlier on in the season, at the start of the season, the offense was struggling to get going in the early part of the season. The defense bailed them out. They were putting points on the board instead of the offense. Right at the very start of the season. But now, this weekend, the defense couldn't get it done. The offense can't get it done. You got to do something.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Rich, because I kind of feel like, remember the earlier part of the season, like but just before like the San Francisco game, just after that, like the biggest concern we had about we're not utilizing our wide receivers. We managed to resolve that, have that good game, like have those much better performances. Even though we lost to the Eagles back in Lincoln Financial Field, we were still the better team. I thought, like. We were utilizing Cooks better, we were utilizing Lamb better, etc. as the weeks went on. But when we're not utilizing, and I think that's one thing we've just not done yet, is we've utilized the run game properly yet. Are we holding ourselves back? Like, do we actually have installs for outside run? We're saving it when we really need it to really surprise someone, or is McCarthy just like wants to really make sure that Pollard, like, I see more from you from the inside. We know that you're good at the outside, but again, we can't hold players back. We need to let the guy play, let them run outside, let people try and tackle him and miss. That's what Pollard is good at. So, in a way, that's on McCarthy's play calling in that one. I will sadly have to say,
if that's the case, I'll be very disappointed, because you only get 17 of these this season. But the time of the season to hold things back in the playbook, by and large, has gone. You're at this point now where you have put yourselves in a position through what you've done to be in a position to win the division and change your seeding to be quite advantageous for you in the way that you want to play, so that you get at least, hopefully, one game at home, which will maybe help you get over the hump. Or the hump that you haven't been able to get past for a very long time. You should have, if that is the case, that they've held back, like you said, which I don't think it is, but if McCarthy is doing that, and he's thrown a game effectively, and that is a waste, because your best opportunity to get one up on the Eagles just passed you by.
I've literally just thought of a crazy conspiracy here, Rich, now thinking about it. What if it's not Mike McCarthy is making that decision? What if it's someone higher up and doesn't want to pay the bigger bucks? It's possible. Like, if Pollard is running amok, running outside, then obviously his value is going to go up.
I don't think.
I know. You know where I'm going with that, but it's crazy.
I know you go with that, but I don't think Jerry Jones doesn't want the Super Bowl enough that badly. I think it's the opposite. We'll do
I know. It's a crazy thing to think, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. If that makes sense.
Like for me, Paul, this is Pollard's last season in Dallas. He's not going to be here next year. It's exactly the same. We all knew last year Dalton Schultz wasn't staying beyond last season, and I'm pretty sure Tony Pollard won't be here next season. I can't see any world in which he is. They're not gonna pay him 12, 13 million because he doesn't produce like a 12 or 13 million dollar running back. And we have too many contracts to get done. We've Dak, we've CD, we've Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
We've contracts there which are toxic at the minute. Michael Gallup and a couple of others. And we can't afford Tony Pollard. It's as simple as that. He has to go.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's it's somewhat frustrating. Like it's just like I just hope we manage to turn this around. I really do. But that's all I'm hoping for. But
the thing that I see it as is the problems that you have are potentially fixable.
Yeah.
With what I personally see them as. Now, it's going to take a real effort, and it's going to take everyone on this team saying, yeah, this has got to change. It's got to be another step like it was earlier in the season after you lost to the Eagles and said, kind of enough's enough. You need everyone to take account for themselves, for self-discipline. You need to not hold back. You need to accept that, like I said earlier on with Sam Williams, if you play with fire, you're going to get burnt at some point.
Yeah.
That's fine. Everything else needs to get cut out.
Yeah.
They've been trending that way, so I hope they maintain that, but they got to cut that out. They got to start really learning some mental resiliency really quickly, and they've got to really start committing to trying to get this run game going properly and getting Tony Pollard in areas where he can succeed. Because if you can do that, even with this defense banged up as it is, and missing key people like it is, you could still potentially. You could.
Yeah.
But you've got to fix those things. But they are fixable. It's not a case of our quarterback's down, we're gone, or we haven't got this person. It's not a personnel issue, big and glaring necessarily for me. It's some intangibles and making good decisions. If you can do those, you have a real fighting chance. But you've got to be willing to fight and take accountability and do things that need to be done.
Yeah. So just a couple of comments here. Elizabeth, it's always great to have you along. I see you're disagreeing with me on the Tony Pollard thing. And look, that's fair enough. My reasoning behind that is at the minute, the Cowboys are $1.5 million over the cap. They have to get Dak sorted out. They have to get CD Lamb re-signed. They have to get Micah Parsons sorted out. There just isn't going to be enough money to pay Tony Pollard, in my opinion. But, that's my opinion. And Joe was saying, I don't see our center coming back. I'll ask both of you guys, and I mean, look, I'm on record as I don't think Biadish will be coming back either. I mean, I don't see a center in this draft class worth drafting. So I think they need, like this offseason, I think this front office and this coaching ticket actually needs to look at how they can rebuild the offense and the offensive line in particular. Because they've spent the last two draft classes really beefing up the defense.
I think it's so where we're already talking about for next year already, and we're still in this season. I'm not going to make any comment on any players coming back or not coming back next year, because I want to focus on what's happening right now. Like when it's off season, I will make comments of players who think will stay in and who will go, because we've still got a lot of football to play right now.
Yeah.
We've got Miami coming up, and we've got Washington coming up. So
And Detroit.
And Detroit.
And Detroit for the Ring of Honor for Jimmy Johnson. So there's still plenty of football to. I think we're just getting too caught up, and whenever we lose, we're already thinking next year, like already, like we're all guilty of it, every one of us, and as I suppose any team that loses, they're finding out, oh God, like why did we do this? We'll find about, okay, what's our cap space, blah 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 blah. I'm just like, we're still in this season. We're just clinched the playoffs. What can we do to improve as of right now? Because this is the now, not next year. So that's my stance on it. So sorry to bust the bubble there, Brian.
No, and look, as Joe said, look, he said he agrees with you, and he's sorry for bringing it up. But look, it's questions we do ask. But I mean, look at Elizabeth has kind of came back and she said he thinks Jerry is setting up Gallup to get rid of him, and we need Pollard as a 1-2 punch. I mean, we have Rico Dowdle in this lineup.
Yeah,
I mean,
good.
why are they not using him a bit more? If you want to run between the tackles, Rico Dowdle is that kind of a back. It's, as I keep saying, thunder and lightning is what you need in your backfield. And I can't remember how often we've seen the two of them in the backfield at the same time.
He's more of that kind of running back. I wouldn't say he is that kind of running back personally.
Yeah.
Not to the same element of like Zeke and other players of that ilk, Zeke. But he's not that tough, push forward, fall forward kind of guy.
Yeah.
The annoying thing with Pollard is, and this is the reason why I think Elizabeth and others are feeling that way, is because he's, as we said, he's not being utilized. When he has been utilized, even though you're not using him properly, he's still giving you decent yards per rush, but you're not doing it more. So there's this thing working, but you're not doing that more. That doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. So I understand why what Paul said earlier with his crazy conspiracy theory and all the rest of it, it's, as he puts it, but it's understandable why people are having these cogs turning. And like Elizabeth has just said, she thinks Jerry's setting him up to not pay him or setting him up to fail, and all the rest of it, however you want to word it, is I don't think it's necessarily that is it. Because I think Jerry wants to win a Super Bowl too much to do that. So the question then is, why are they not utilizing him properly? And like Paul said earlier, before it was you're not utilizing your wide receivers properly. Now it's you're not utilizing your running back properly.
Yeah,
but he's producing when you do use him, even not properly.
If there's one thing I would like to see, you just mentioned why not have two running backs on the play at the same time? Why not have them in a shotgun formation? Really make the defensive front really think about of what direction you're going to go. Because if you're that pressure, you're going to be 5 yards back. You're going to have Dowd at one side, Paul at one side. You're obviously you can do a fake handoff to one of them. And hand it up, like really cause a lot of confusion at the trenches to get those 5, 6, 7 yard gains. Or it could really expand open if our wide receivers actually help with the assisted blocks. That could really unleash a big, massive gain. So, and that's one thing that we haven't seen at all this year is a shotgun formation. Really, we haven't seen it. So, like, why not have an install for that? Like, and now's the right time for it. We're in December. We're in the verge of the playoffs, and it's trying to give more teams to think about at this stage now. And I will say, like, obviously, as the season progresses, you do new installs because you don't want to show all your cards so early on, like the Eagles have done as of right now. Like, the Eagles have shown all their cards, and teams are now got all the footage.
They've been made to.
They've been made to.
They've been made to by the way they've played and the way they've run games. But the way the thing that I find really maddening about specifically how they've utilized Tony Pollard, or not utilized Tony Pollard, as we've said, is there's been instances where they've done that with different players. You've had jet sweeps and all the rest of it. You've had handoffs to Turpin. You've had handoffs to CeeDee Lamb out the backfield, and they've been gone, and they've gone a long ways. Why are we not doing that with Pollard?
Yeah, and here's I don't know, mate. I mean, in terms of our formations and stuff like that, we're doing everything but shotgun. We're doing single back, we're doing pistol formation, we're doing I formations, we're doing all that, but we haven't done a lot of shotgun. And I'm sure there's a reason behind it. Again, it could be the fact that we could be not what show up our cards and that, but like you're saying, mate, it's just like times now. It's like if we're behind and we want to really like gain as much of the advantage what we're doing, we're gonna have to really put out all stops, like get Paul more involved, get him to run outside, get him to like do whatever, like get more Hunter Luke in there to kind of really solidify like the inside blocks. Like if we're and that was our biggest problem. Like one of the big things for fullbacks is like to give some extra backing to really open up the gaps in the middle. Like that's one of the, like, especially if you're in an I formation, you're basically using your fullback as an absolute battering ram. We didn't really utilize Luke Kuechly. Maybe seen him for 2 or 3 plays and that's it. But the majority of that whole game, we were in I formation or single back. That was it.
Yep. So, that was one thing. There was there was a good step up in terms of the fullback play on Sunday and the production there and the assistance there. That was good to see. But I completely agree. Hunter Luepke, for me, hasn't been utilized, hasn't been explored anywhere near enough throughout the season. And look, I would absolutely love nothing more than to be able to look back 2020 vision and say, do you know what? Mike McCarthy played a hell of a freaking hand there throughout that season because he realized earlier on, we're probably going to make the playoffs. There's no need for me to put all this stuff on tape. Save it for when it needs to be. But I struggle to accept that because now, like you said, you're having these kinds of games and it's affecting your team's psyche.
Yeah.
Like you said, everyone on defense was
spot on, Rich. Spot on.
That's not what you want to have happen. And if that was what's happening, I don't think you'd be seeing that from your team because they'd be in on it.
Yeah.
Like the way I'm seeing Dallas as of right now, Super Bowl, no. NFC Championship, no. If we do get home field advantage, then I think we'll probably win the first round into the playoffs, and after that, that's where the question lies. It's like, and we're basically back to where we were last year, and we don't want that. We want to progress from last year. We want to get to the next level. We want to get to the Super Bowl. But if we're having 5 games in a row looking great and we're having a stumbling block against a team that aren't doing as good as they should be and really step up when it really matters, then that's a problem. That's a big problem.
Yeah, and I agree with Basky there. And like I said, your best chance of that is just let go by not winning the game.
Yeah. Gentlemen, we're nearly an hour and a half into things. Is there anything else you want to discuss before we do get out of here?
Brandon Aubrey, why not? MVP.
31 of 31. The record extended.
Right. I've got a mate in work who I've started getting into the NFL, and he's starting to use the word "we" whenever the Cowboys win or lose now. So he's getting there. I'm starting to convert him. The subliminal messaging and everything's working. But shout out to Cal if you're listening randomly. I doubt he is, but still. One of the things he mentioned today specifically when we were on lunch was he brought up Aubrey. He was like, "What's his name?" I was like, "Brandon Aubrey," and he was like, "He's not missed a kick, is he?" And I was like, "No, not missed a kick all season." He's like, "How common is that?" I was like, "Really, really, really not common. I cannot stress to you how rare this is." Just like
in terms of field goals, he's perfect. He has missed a few extra points. Like one, like he's missed one against the Jets, which again that was using their ball. You can use that as an excuse, but in fairness, pure two actual field goal, field goals, UATs with our ball are like in the situation after scoring a touchdown. Then that's the only thing. But other than that, Aubrey has been so automatic when it comes to the field goals, hitting it from 55, hitting it from 60 or whatever, and just like see if it was the other way. Like when you look at kickers in the past, like Dan Bailey, fantastic player. But when you look at the previous ones we've had, like Dread Leg and Brett Maher and stuff like that, like that mental block from the kicking game, I feel so much more at ease now with our, like, if we're on field goal, I don't have that stress about it anymore. I really don't. And
you've got to make 20 to, like Dak said it, you got to get within 60 yards. He said you start off at the 25, we got to make 15 yards. 15, 25 yards. And it's probably in his range.
Yep. And the most impressive thing about Aubrey is that, like, this is his rookie season, right? He's without a doubt the most richest sports franchise in all of sporting history. Like more than the New York Yankees, more than Barcelona and Real Madrid, whatever. The most valuable sports franchise in the world, and he's the kicker for them. He's not feeling that, like, he is cool under the pressure, home and away, in all weather conditions, from the slippery slopes in Philadelphia and Buffalo to the inside indoor stadiums. He has been absolutely fantastic. And I said this, it's like the next jersey I'm thinking about getting is actually either Brandon Aubrey or Jake Ferguson. That's the next two jerseys I'm thinking about getting.
It's ridiculous because he's asking me all these questions, and I said, look, this is really, really rare. But the way he's doing it, he said, what was it about when I come out saying, man, anger punted well?
That's fair. That's fair, Labarsky. That's very fair.
That's very fair.
For our audio,
straight down. He said they're all straight down the middle.
Yeah.
I said, there's not one that's straight. I said, it's you never see that. I've legitimately never ever seen that. How's he been playing like this before? How long has he been in the league? I said, this is his rookie season. He never even played American football in college. He was like, what?
Yeah.
Just couldn't comprehend it. I said, he's sitting on the couch with his missus one day, and she said, you can do that. Oh, and he grew up down the road, and now he plays for the Cowboys, and he's like, that's mad.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So big shout out to Brandon Aubrey. And Aubrey we trust.
Automatic Aubrey.
Automatic. And as Labarsky says, look, we'll give the man his kudos. Brian Anger flipped fields repeatedly for us, and he needed to.
Yep.
Didn't punt to all the punts.
You know what was funny, right? I said this to Meg on the World's team. Is I had a bold prediction that Sam Williams was going to make a play on special teams, but I didn't expect that type of play to happen to actually go against us.
All I'm hearing is Paul is now banned from making predictions for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I'm not. I think my cheeky predictions for the Miami game is out. My cheeky predictions are going to be out the window for next week. I think I'm going to play it safe. Because me and Meg always do a segment. What is an unlikely scenario that could happen, right? And I thought, you know what? I generally thought Sam Williams on a kickoff or something like that, he would have caused a fumble and we would have won the ball back or something like that. But no. I was not expecting that in terms of the punt block.
Kind of right though. I mean, he was there. He made a play.
Yeah. I mean, if if Sam Williams happened to be off his feet, there's a fair chance he actually does block that punt.
I don't know.
Got a fair chance he doesn't get the flag.
You know.
Yeah. I'm just saying, Labos. Jeez, can we end on a high note talking about Sam's punt block?
For sure. But look, gents, as I say, we're over an hour and a half at this stage, and I suppose, look, let's get out of here. And we'll pay the bills before we do. Paul, if you want to give the shout out.
Yes, guys, if you are planning going to a Dallas Cowboys game, be sure to go and check out cowboysexperience.com for stadium tours, game tickets, meet and greets, and much, much more. You'll get full-on packages created and tailored for you by the team at Cowboys Experience. And to get full advantage of that, please use the promo code UK Cowboys.
And what do you get if you use the code Rich?
Use the code. We get free stuff here.
Yeah, you get free.
And what do you do if you don't get free? If you don't use the code?
Nasty man from Philadelphia gets you in the middle of the night.
In fact, you know what? I will end this on a high note. We didn't really talk about last night's game. Did anyone notice how sneaky Jason Kelce is moving the ball?
Yes.
Did anyone notice of how bad MVP supposedly Jalen Hurts is? Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Honestly, I will say, referees are still got it for the Eagles. They really do. Lane Johnson once again jumping offside and not getting called for it. I'm just that's to me is going to be my biggest take of this whole season, is why Lane Johnson, this one particular player, keeps jumping offside and hardly ever gets called for it. And Hurts is injured.
Hurts isn't injured. Hurts is
that's a good one, Joe. That's a good one. Yeah, so for our audio listeners, right, if you don't use the discount code for Cowboys Experience, we'll end up getting Kellen Moore back, and you don't want that.
No, thank you. No, the for me it's been weird. The yin and yang of holding for me this year has been Lane Johnson, who doesn't get called on when he does hold, and then the yang of it is Micah Parsons, who doesn't get called when he is held.
This is true. This is true. But look, gentlemen, it's time to get out of here. Mike and the guys will be along on Thursday night for the pre-game show against the Miami Dolphins. Paul, I'm sure you'll be along for that.
Should be. Yeah, should be.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, it is a good night from me.
It's a good night from me.
And it's a good night from me.
Also,
see you, folks.